Do you miss when games like Fallout 2 would let you do a pacifist run where you could beat the game without killing a single living soul whatsoever? Did you see the plethora of ways you can kill someone in this game and think, I want to challenge myself by not doing any of that? Are you interested in a comically exaggerated explanation of why pacifism doesn't work in real life? If you answered yes to any of my inquiries, I have the guide for you. How yin's doing? I'm Ian, and this is the Streets of Rogue Character Guide series, where we look at every character and see what they're good at, what they're bad at, and most importantly, if they're right for you. Today, as you could tell by reading the title of the video, we'll be covering the Doctor. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Perfect. Kill me later.
The Doctor, no not that one, is a starting character in Streets of Rogue, meaning nothing beyond owning a game is required to play them. As for their backstory, it reads, one of the few true pacifists in this dangerous world. Indeed, the Doctor is very skilled at pacifying people with chloroform, but business is currently booming what with all the beatings being administered by cops since the mayor's new law of the land was put in place. Despite the extra cash flow, the Doctor would rather the streets be safe and has decided to join the resistance. As for your stats, you start with an average of 2 in everything save for melee, which is an abysmal 1, which doesn't really matter since you have the pacifist trait, meaning you can't use any weapons. You also got the medical professional trait, letting you heal allies once per floor. I never get much use of this trait since allies tend to be more of a liability than an asset in my experience. However, if you're playing around them, this can be quite useful. Now some of you might be asking, how are we going to deal with hostile NPCs like the cannibals in the park and super cops in the later floors when normal weapons are off the table? And the answer is quite simple. Chloroform. Lots and lots of chloroform. You see, as the Doctor, you have access to the super special ability called Chloroform Hanky. This hanky allows you to knock out any NPC in the game that isn't a robot, making it ideal for dealing with neutralization missions, rescue operations, or just rigging elections because, whilst the distinction between passed out and dead is an important one, it's not one of particular relevance when it comes to elections. Just keep in mind that this ability has a cooldown, so don't go thinking you can just spam this thing 24/7. You need to wait a few seconds after each and every use. If, however, you are unable to get behind the dude you want to take out, you always have your trusty Plan B in your starting inventory, a tranquilizer gun. Please bear in mind, however, that the tranq guns don't work instantaneously. There's gonna be a few seconds that need to pass between you hitting them with your tranq gun and them actually passing out. So make sure that you're out of sight, out of mind when you do this and that their allies don't see you, unless you want to have the Benny Hill theme play as you run around the map trying not to get gunned down. And if you find yourself in need of doing something that will actually be a lot louder, like breaking down a door or smashing a window, be sure to use your ear warp whistles to help prevent anyone from hearing you so that you don't have to play the Benny Hill music more than you have to. You also have a first aid kit in your starting inventory, a powerful healing item that restores 40 HP and, since it's in your starting inventory, can be restocked at load-automatics whenever you need to. This also applies to the tranquilizer gun as well as the whistles, making them quite useful for anyone who is trying to avoid getting into a fight, since punching people to death runs counter to your big quest. Speaking of which...
Asuna, look, okay? I get it. You had a really bad day. You're stressed out, 7 people died.
12 people!
Not the point. Look, they're dead now. And really, whose fault is that?
Yours!
That's right. No one's.
Your big quest is called Purveyor of Peace. In this quest, you must complete each floor having killed less than 2 people. The Chloroform Hanky and Tranquilizer Gun will prove mandatory in this big quest, since they are the only reliable ways to neutralize hostile NPCs without killing them. However, if you're in a situation where trying to sneak up behind someone and neutralize them with your Chloroform Hanky is impossible and you're out of your Tranquilizer Gun's ammo supply, there are still options available to you. Firstly, zombies and robots are not considered alive as far as this quest is concerned, so you can kill them with impunity with your bare fists if need be. Also, you can bait NPCs into hitting other NPCs, starting brawls. This is ideally done by using specific items like the Bigfoot holograms. However, this task is more often than not done by you using neutral NPCs as a shield while someone who is hostile to you tries to swing at you without hitting them unsuccessfully. If you kill more than 2 NPCs on a floor, you'll lose out on XP bonuses for completing your big quest, and if you kill more than 30 on a given run, you'll fail the quest outright. However, if you manage to reach the mayor's village having killed 30 or less NPCs, you'll be rewarded with free ammo from ammo dispensers and the cooldown on your hanky being removed. When you're going about trying to complete this big quest, the best advice I can give is to remember that it only counts if you are the one that killed the NPCs. If the cannibals in the park started chasing after innocent civilians, anyone they eat isn't on your hands and therefore doesn't count against you on the big quest. The same goes for anyone who is chasing after you only to get run over by a train downtown. Doesn't matter if the only reason these NPCs were killed was because they are chasing after you for stealing their stuff, you weren't the one that killed them directly, therefore you're not the one held responsible and your quest will not be jeopardized as a result of this. Because of this big quest and how it operates, I strongly advise against trying to remove the pacifist trait at an augmentation booth. Not only does it cost a colossal sum of money to get rid of in the first place, but doing so runs counter to this big quest entirely, since the pacifist trait effectively just means you can't use weapons that you're not going to be able to use if you want to succeed in this mission in the first place. As a result of this, I recommend simply picking up the GPS trait if you can and simply pawning off all the weapons your opponents drop upon being knocked out with your chloroform and just selling it off for some easy money. After all, tranquilizer ammo can be quite pricey and difficult to replace, so being able to turn the weapons your opponents drop into an easy revenue stream can be quite beneficial in this regard. And if you're going for an election victory, I strongly recommend chloroforming slave owners in order to ensure that the slaves you then free from their masters being knocked out will vote for you. This is particularly easy to do in the uptown sections where you can see upper crusters walking slaves around like a pet dog. All in all, I give the Doctor an asymmetrical out of 10. This character operates in a completely different way from the majority of the game's playable cast, and requires a unique mindset if you don't want hordes of super cops trying to gun you down as you try to nab the mayor's hat after you chloroform him. Or her. To be honest, I'm pretty sure the entire population of this game consists of hermaphrodites, to be perfectly honest, which makes the whole walking slaves around like a pet dog get even more uncomfortable the more you think about it. That's all for now, though. Like the video if you did, subscribe if you don't want to miss the next one, comment what you want to see me cover in the future. I've been Ian, you have been you, and this has been the Streets of Rogue character guide to The Doctor. And stay tuned, the hacker is coming up next.